Welcome to Embrace the Spiritual Podcast. Join friends Michelle and Dawn as they share tips on how you too can open your heart, raise your vibration, and reclaim your sovereignty. Hear what they have experienced and overcome in their spiritual journeys while navigating this expansive spiritual multiverse. Discover how they transform their soul lessons from ordinary into extraordinary.
Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual Podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content. To book a quantum energy healing session with Dawn, visit her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. And to book a quantum energy healing session or learn Reiki or Tuning Forks, visit Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com.
Welcome back. And today we are talking about dowsing. I am so excited because I just realized I douse every day. And you're probably thinking, Dawn, why do you douse every single day? Because you can use energy every day. And we technically do with our feelings, our thoughts, especially our thoughts. Are they negative? Are they positive? Are we drawing things into our life that we want or we don't want? Are we being a creator or are we being a destroyer? And I am a creator and I want to create the best that I can in my life. So I douse in the morning when I do my shields. I douse when I clear my food to make sure that it is at the, nothing is going to affect me negatively, and then to raise up the vibration to its highest healing potential. And that's what dowsing is. It is taking a simple tool, using it to talk to your higher self and your team. And honestly, your imagination, it can go far beyond. So why would you not have that in your suitcase of things that you can do for yourself? And I was inspired by a friend who's a beautiful chiropractor, and she does emotion code healing. And she introduced me to dowsing like 5 years ago. And I am recommending Raymond Grace. He is so simple, lives in the Appalachian Mountains, simple life. He's a farmer, down to earth, keeps it not complicated. He just wants everybody to be happy and living their highest potential. And I bought 2 of his books. He actually has 3. The Future is Yours is the first one. It's about dowsing, spontaneous healings, ghost busting, and the incredible power of the mind. And in this, he talks about science, which I like, considering, he lives the simple life. So he is well educated. And then I can't remember if this is his last book or his second book, but he actually did a kids book, like not for kids, but how he raised his daughter to help her succeed and be successful in her life. So we can do this. And I've actually been using his tools to help my daughter succeed in her college classes. And she just took her first test, which she thought was kind of hard. Actually, it was 2 tests back to back. And the one she got 90 on, but because she had perfect attendance, the instructor gave her 10 extra points. So she got 100 and then a 90. And kids who she thought would do really well ended up getting 60s, which I don't think is passing in college. So it's so true that what we feed ourselves and our children mentally feeds their soul. And we can create so much beautiful things for them without even having to, be like, eat your peas, or, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's all through intention and the words that we use.
And we'll be sure to put a link on our embracethespiritual.com website for those books that Dawn was just talking about. And I love that we're talking about this topic because I'm sure there's many people saying, is dowsing just for finding things, right? We probably all have heard on some level about people dowsing for water. So you see kind of those Y-shaped, could be branches or a set of metal rods, and like dowsing rods that are L-shaped. And you can certainly use pretty much anything to douse with. So this gentleman that Dawn was just talking about uses a bullet on a metal chain, right? So it makes sense for him. It resonates with him. You could use a pendulum. You could use dowsing rods. If you are going to use dowsing rods, I would highly recommend using copper ones. I can put a link on the website for the ones that I have gotten. You've got little balls on the end and the handles that you hold in your hand. The dowsing rod kind of sits in a little casing so that it has the ability to move around. So let's talk about finding things. Maybe you're using a set of dowsing rods to locate something in your house. I haven't tried this, but I'm going to later today because there is something I know is in the house somewhere and I cannot find it. For the life of me, I've looked in all the normal places and it's nowhere to be found. So I could simply hold my dowsing rods. I could walk around the house. You could do it a couple different ways. You could ask to help find, and when you're getting closer, for me, when my dowsing rods cross in front of me, that's a yes. And when they turn away from each other to the outside, then that's a no. So you could ask yes, no questions to be able to determine, is it in this room, yes or no? And you could keep asking a series of questions to kind of drill into finding it. If you were to do it more like the water dowsing, then you would walk until the dowsing rods kind of start to cross and you're getting closer. I love that dowsing can be used for multiple things. Dawn was just sharing how she does it in the morning. She's not necessarily doing it with certain tools. So don't think like you have to go out and purchase anything, but really, because energy is all around us, that's why dowsing works. And certainly I've heard that people have maybe a natural gift for dowsing. And I think like anything, right? There's people that have a natural talent for art or music, and some people have a natural talent for this, but it doesn't mean you can't learn it and still use it. One of the ones that I really love, I'll talk about first, is pendulum dowsing. So I think so many of us have a pendulum. And if you don't, they're relatively inexpensive. Go into a store, do muscle testing. Muscle testing is a form of dowsing, isn't it? It gives us an intuitive yes, no that correlates to what is good for our body. And of course, like anything, kind of the disclaimer and right up front, I'll say, is be mindful and intentional with doing this process, no matter what tool you use, what you're looking for, whether it's guidance, you're asking your higher self questions, whatever you're doing, make sure that you have a proper process of maybe meditation before, you're grounded, you're clear of other people's energy, that you have a good intention when you're doing the process, because otherwise there are a lot of low-level vibration entities that are out there that will mess with you and you won't get accurate answers. So make sure that you are operating from a higher vibration. Don't be consuming drugs or alcohol and then go dowsing. Like you've already lowered your vibration by doing those activities. You are not going to get good information and it could lead you down a path. So like anything, be mindful of how you're using and interpreting the information. So I just wanted to kind of throw in that little bit of preparation before you go dowsing. Because otherwise you'll just say, well, this doesn't work. Well, of course it doesn't work because you're not in the right mindset to help it work. But pendulums are great, especially for yes, no questions, right? For my pendulum, if it goes left to right, that's a no. And if it goes forward and back, so kind of perpendicular to your body, that's a yes. And for me, when I'm clearing energy and things, it goes in a circle. Typically, I use a counterclockwise circle for clearing and a clockwise circle for bringing new energy in. But that's if I'm doing a specific, maybe clearing of my house with my tuning forks. I might do that because I'm doing two different techniques. So that's why I have one way for clearing and another way. But when you're doing a pendulum, you can set the intention that if it spins in a circle either direction, it's clearing energy. So you can use pendulums for asking questions. Really, the dowsing with a pendulum, that's really what it is. You are tapping into your higher self, spirit, your divine team. So you're tapping in to find out those answers. A lot of times people use the dowsing techniques or tools because they don't have that maybe confidence of what information they're receiving. And they're just kind of second guessing themselves. So I always say, no matter what tool you use, establish a baseline with your item. So whether it's my dowsing rods or my pendulum, I will always say, show me yes, show me no. My name is Michelle, should be yes. If I say my name is Dawn, it should be no. So ask very deliberate questions that you know is a yes or no answer. You can also ask, am I working with a high vibration being, benevolent being, not just high vibration, but you could ask that certainly. And make sure that the answer is yes for 3 times in a row. So that's just kind of some advice that I would use. You could use a pendulum to dowse for finding something as well, not just the yes no questions, but you could walk around and put the intention that your pendulum will start moving in the direction that you need to walk to find something. And maybe when it's found something, it goes in a circle. You can have your own ways to do that. So pendulum dowsing, I think, is a great way to get started. But again, you have to be really mindful that you're working with high vibration, benevolent, which means good beings when you're doing this. So even if you feel like your answers are getting kind of wonky, check in. I always ask to clear myself before doing it. You can ask to clear during maybe your dowsing session, and then again ask your yes no questions just to confirm. You can ask if I'm working with that higher vibrational being. So that's one of the ones that I wanted to bring up initially. What else do you got, Dawn?
So when you mentioned, your tools, I use my hands for when I clear my food or even to do my shields, because that's dowsing. What you're doing is you're moving energy in a counterclockwise motion to clear, or a clockwise motion to make sure that your shields are up. So I just thought you don't have to be limited, especially if you are stuck someplace and you realize, oh my goodness, I wish I had my dowsing tool. Raymond actually brings his dowsing tool everywhere he goes with him. And I can't remember if it was in one of the books, or he does have a very brief YouTube channel because he's so busy. He does a lot for his community because it is a poor community. And he talks about how he checks the food that he's going to eat. Like, is this going to agree with me? Can I change the vibration? And I can't remember if he does it before the menu, after the menu. But what if we all did this for ourselves? And instead of being, like witchcraft or woo woo, we went to a restaurant and everybody's dowsing to make sure that their food was of nutrition and energy content that their body needs. I just have that vision, and I think that is awesome. So I love his book because he writes it to empower us. And I know with our podcast, we are here to empower you. And there's just so many good things that he says that we all know about. And he talks about if you can relax your mind and body enough to focus your thoughts and use vivid visualization, you can perform miracles. So that's what we're doing when we do energy work, when we're doing dowsing. He talks about don't complicate it. So many people miss the whole picture because it's so simple. We live in a world that wants to complicate everything. Lecturers and writers using big words, complicated terms to make themselves appear superior. And it's so true. How many people have we listened to and my brain turns off when they start getting too complicated? Like, it's my inner knowing. When you start using big words, and I do use big words, but I use it more of a like a funny ha-ha sort of thing. Because what's the point of having big words if people don't know what you're saying, or if you have to use a dictionary to look it up, that does not convey a message. It's more like I'm trying to, smoke and mirrors you and make you miss the point of the whole lecture. So I love to keep things super simple. And that's what dowsing is. Energy, yes, no, perfect. And you can use this I love how you were mentioning the tools you can do to clear yourself. When I use the tool, I always ask to speak to my higher self. I ask if there's any discordant energies. You can check for curses, hexes. And it is as simple as somebody saying, damn you, that has created a negative curse towards you. And it's to be cleared. How simple is that? So I always, do I have curses? Do I have any hexes? Are there any ghosts? That's an easy one. We all should check, especially if you buy new property. Is there any lingering energy from a previous tenant or, ghost energy? Does that house have memories that we don't want anymore? It's so simple and not complicated. We can take back and reclaim our lives by using this tool. And it may be hard at first for you to get the feel of it, because I realize, like, doing SRT sessions, which is dowsing, you use I am right handed and my energy flows better in my right hand. And when I put my dowsing tool in my left hand, it takes a lot longer to get the yes no going. So it is interesting that the energies are not equal on my body, left and right. So I am working on making the left stronger so that it can douse as well. So I can write down notes, because a lot of times when I'm getting stuff, or if I'm checking on things, as you start dowsing, you start having this connection to your higher self, and you see things, you hear things. The communication becomes really clear because you're entering into that theta brain wave, and it just starts to flow, and you just go with it. And it's a beautiful communication. I just love how simple it is. So he has a lot of, since he's up in the mountains, he has a lot of, Native American friends. And I love his friend's name. He's called Stalking Wolf. And the Native Americans don't call them frequencies, he called them lands. So Alpha was the land of the spirit. Theta and Delta are the lands of the shaman. And Beta was the land of the living dead. And it's so true. We always had a joke in my family that there would be zombies one day. And I realize when we go on walks, we're surrounded by them. Have you ever passed somebody who is so connected to their phone and you say hello and they don't respond to you? To me, that is a zombie. We have a couple of them that walk down our street that they're so attached to their phone, and I don't know how they don't trip over the cracks and crevices in the sidewalk, because we do have old trees that have popped up the sidewalks, but they're zombies. These people do not think for themselves. They're so attached to their phone. I've actually started to do an energetic disconnect from my phone where I put it in airplane mode and Wi-Fi off, so that when I'm on walks, I'm not being affected energetically from my phone, because I don't want to resonate with my phone energy in those moments in time and in space that I'm spending with my dog and my husband or my family. And it just feels good to be free from the technology. So there's just so many simple things that we can do to create. And you can also douse your phone, but I figured this is my way of just saying, I don't consent to this energy being in my life. I need it for when we go on dog walk, and the flashlight is amazing. A lot easier than holding a flashlight that is a lot larger. So just things to think about. You don't have to make dowsing complicated.
And that's just it. I think sometimes there's a lot of spiritual people out there that are making things complicated. You have to have a certificate for saying that you learned how to do this. We all have the ability to learn it. Unless you're going to be an acupuncturist and sticking needles in me, then I probably want you to learn what you're doing. But for something like this, that's the beauty of why we wanted to share this tool with you, is because everybody can use it. It takes practice. As Dawn and I both said, you work on clearing yourself so that you are a better conduit of information, because that's really what's happening when you're dowsing. You are being a conduit of energy to be expressed through the dowsing tool. And it really is about connecting to your higher self. It is intended to bypass the ego. So you want to make sure that you're in the right mindset, or energetically, like if you're feeling really sick or something, well, it's probably not a good time to douse, right? You want to be energetically flowing better. I wanted to share a bit about medical dowsing. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about medical dowsing. I know certainly when I do my distant healing sessions, I always clear the chakras. And I actually, for that, I use my pendulum. And I have the pendulum show me the current state of the chakra. So for example, I don't just say open or close the chakra. I talk about balancing it, because you could be too open, you could be too closed. We want to balance it. But what happens is, I always like to say, show me what it looks like first. And there are sometimes it's like this funky, weird shape, and maybe it hardly moves, so it's kind of closed off. Or if it's like moving erratically, it's too open. So it gives me an idea of what's going on in that body area as it relates to chakra. you can do the same thing for other body parts to help clear them. Maybe you're going to see somebody like a medical professional and you want to find out more information about what's going on, whatever the case might be. But if you were to, let's say, with one hand on your own body, kind of put your hand or your finger, whatever, in a certain spot and ask your pendulum to show you the energy movement or the status, whatever language makes sense to you. If the pendulum has a good circular movement, I would say that the energy is flowing pretty well in that area. If it doesn't move or it's got kind of erratic movement, then you probably have some blocked energy in that area. So I think it's a great tool from a medical. Of course, we are not doctors. We're not diagnosing, treating anything. It's just a suggestion. By all means, if there's something serious, please see some kind of medical professional or health practitioner to handle those things that you need to have more expertise looking at. But why not see if you can clear some energy hidden? Maybe a certain area is locked up. Maybe there's a spiritual meaning to it as well. So you can do an internet search for spiritual meanings of something. So I think medical dowsing is something that a lot of people don't do, but it certainly is a form of dowsing that you can do. And lots of us that are on this spiritual path, we've gone through certain experiences and we are holding stuck energy in our body somewhere. And you can ask yes, no questions if you need to know more about what's going on, or just maybe you need to clear some energy in a specific place. So I think make it simple as far as a tool that you use, and keep it simple as far as what you use it for. Well, maybe not simple. Expand your horizons of what you can use it for, and don't limit yourself in that perspective.
I love that you mentioned about medical dowsing, because Raymond actually has a friend that is a doctor and he uses dowsing. He does these great emails about once a month. He is busy, so sometimes his daughter starts them and then he'll add something. But he did have 2 months ago a friend of his that is a doctor that he started working with, and he douses, and he gave his information. I do not remember it because I didn't even know that we were going to talk about dowsing when I got the information. So I'm sure if you want to contact him, I believe he would be in Virginia. If you ever want to step outside the realm of the Western medicine complex, I highly recommend seeing alternative Western medicine / the dowsing medical procedures that he is using. Because I know that Raymond said he was doing a wonderful thing. And I think actually, did I send you, remember I screenshot medical things, and I think he checks them every day. There was a list of it. Might still be on my phone. I'll see if I can find it when you're talking. And actually, I was under the weather recently. I probably sound a little congested. Stuff goes around when people get together. And it's interesting now that I have started looking at things in an energetic perspective. I have realized my daughter caught it first and it hit her pretty hard. But I realized that for all the times that I was, and my team is like, you have to start changing the words that you're using. So we're not going to call it a sickness. We're calling it like an energetic pump, because they're like, all you're doing is processing energy. And I have noticed that, how we usually get people get the flu, and it's usually a fever and the chills. It's interesting because we had the chills with no fever. We were actually way under temperature for both of us. And she made me take her temperature, and she's like, I have a fever, don't I? And I said, absolutely not. There's no fever going on in your body. She was like 8 degrees under. She was almost like 98. So we did some heating packs to heat her up a couple of times. And yeah, my team was just showing me this is like an energetic disturbance in your body. And my sinuses weren't that bad. I talked to my team before I went to bed. I said, hey, I don't like not being able to sleep without breathing through my nose. Could you please make sure I can breathe through my nose? And sure enough, they stepped up. Last night was probably the worst of them all. I was cold for 3.5 hours. I couldn't get warm. And then when I finally warmed up, it was like not an explosion of energy, but I was really, really warm. So it was kind of nice. I think as we continue with the energies rising on Earth, I think that way people deal with colds and stuff like that is going to start changing too. I know it has happened for me. They're not lasting as long. And I think this one tomorrow, I'm going to feel awesome since I really didn't sleep last night. But, it is what it is. We're processing energy. Those of us who do earth healings for Mother Earth, there has been, volcanoes and hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. So we all feel it in different ways. And as we're helping her, you can also help Dowse. So Robert Detzler has a book. His third book is called Spiritual Healing, and he has these awesome symbols. And to me, it's kind of like dowsing, that you put your hand on and you help yourself. So I was using those to help clear the energy if it was connected to past life stuff. So as we're healing ourselves with this life stuff, you can also use dowsing to do past life stuff too as well, which is pretty much what SRT is. And I'm going to promote SRT because I think it's the quickest and the fastest way to heal so many things. And it is such a beautiful tool. I honestly can't believe that I have not heard about it until this last year. But Spirit, we come here to learn lessons, and I found it when I really needed it. And now I'm sharing the truth about how you can clear so much in your life. And with dowsing, you can create the things that you want in your life. All you have to do is use your imagination. You want to create, you want to have this beautiful house. I have 2 visualizations going on. The short term, we buy another house. Probably my thing, because I think every 11 years we buy another house. And we're reaching that mark. So, and you're probably like, Dawn, but you just bought one. But you know what? I think timelines have changed. So that one may be going by. So I start seeing myself living in these houses. And so it's interesting because there's 2 different scenarios that keep popping up. One is here and one is like this mansion. And I'm like, I don't even know. And I've seen myself living in them. So I'm obviously tapping into a timeline that has not been created yet. So you can always douse on these things, create what you want. All you have to do is have that imagination that is showing you something for some reason, and tap into asking, why are you showing me this? And that's the same way with dreams. I had a dream and it ended up what it was about spiritual stepping up, that I was spiritually leaving that which I had been doing, and I was ascending into another level of spiritual knowledge. And it didn't make sense in the dream, but I knew it had a lot more hidden underneath it. So I looked it up, I looked it up with the dowsing. I connected to my team and I started asking questions, what does this mean? Why was there a cake? Was it for the person who it said it was for? No. What was the symbol? Was this the symbol of the spiritual realm symbol? Because it was like a dove with this beautiful blue, teal energy and silver energy. And it was. And since then, my guidance has been really spot on. What came out, use the color gold to help yourself heal when you have things that you need to heal. And again, in the SRT teachings, that is one of the things that they use, is that you have a certain color that your team wants you to work with for certain things, and ask about it. Is this the color that I need to use to help me heal? The sky's the limit. Visualization is so important. And as children, we have imagination. I remember my children had imaginary friends. What if they were real to them and they were just seeing things in their past lives? As adults, we use that imagination less and less and less if we haven't lost it totally. It's time to reclaim that imagination to create a life that we want for ourselves and our family and for the Mother Earth, because she is trying to change things, and I know she wants help.
One of the additional dowsing things that I wanted to talk about is we can dowse for our pets, right? There's so many times we just take pets to the vet office and hopefully they can find out what's going on. And usually it's costly because they have to run tests to diagnose. Well, we can use this technique for ourselves and for pets. So I just wanted to walk through that a bit. And you could do this with either a pendulum or dowsing rods. So I will say, if you do use dowsing rods, the L-shaped ones, just make sure that if you're sitting, that you're in a comfortable position, you're holding the rods, the longer L part of the rod should be slightly facing down. They shouldn't be facing up, because otherwise they're just going to spin and you're not going to get accurate information. Kind of keep your arms comfortable to your side so that you're not moving them around a lot, kind of like your bent elbow 90 degree, holding them facing straight out. So I just wanted to add that little piece. But if we're going to be dowsing for pets, here's what I would do, because it could be something related to their diet, could be something related to their organ system, maybe it's a behavior thing that you're trying to explore. And it could be, okay, maybe you find something, well, what's the appropriate therapy that we should do? Because it's not always a trip to the vet. It could be a homeopathic change. It could be a diet change. And this works because using something to dowse, I saw something that said, it's like tuning into a radio station. So it doesn't matter how old you are. I think everyone can visualize or understand the fact that they're static. And then once you dial in, you get the music on the radio. So let's say you are trying to help your pet or yourself. So again, this is either one. Maybe you want to state or write down your intention. So what's your intention for the dowsing session? Again, make sure you're centering, grounding yourself, clearing yourself, whatever your process looks like. Connect in with the animal, or if you're doing this with another person, connect in, ask permission, right? Ask permission of the pet or the human that you're working with that you're able to do this work. Test your yes, no, right? My name is, I live, whatever the answers are. And then you can ask and say, what are the potential causes of what is bothering the pet? Is it diet? Let your pendulum or dowsing rods tell you yes, no. If it's diet, then go to the next level of dowsing in it. So kind of drill down. Is it grains, wheat, corn, rice, barley, whatever is in their diet currently? Is it vegetables? Is it a protein? Is it fat? Is it other? So, you can say, is it grains? Yes. Okay, well, if it's grains, is it wheat? Maybe it's no. Corn, no. Rice, yes. But you have to ask, this is why the intention is important, because are you asking if they can tolerate it or not tolerate it? If you don't ask that question, they're going to say, well, how do I know what to say yes or no to? So the intention might be is maybe the animal's throwing up. So my intention is to find out what the cause is of my pet throwing up. Is it their diet? Yes. Is it grains? So maybe it's rice. So maybe you want to adjust their diet. Is it an infection? Yes or no? Is it an allergy? Maybe it's an environmental allergy. Is it their respiratory system? And then again, go into the levels. If it's yes and respiratory, is it their lungs? Is it their nasal passage? Is it their digestive system? If it's digestive, is it their stomach, their spleen, small intestine, liver, large intestine, esophagus? So you want to drill into the area. The urinary system, bladder, kidney, urethra, skin. Is it something to do with their teeth? Is it emotional? Because, hey, like us, pets have emotional things that are trapped in their body too, right? Our dog lost his brother last year. So he ended up having a spleen removed because he had a mass develop on his spleen. And the spleen energetically is about worry. So yes, it may be one of these things. I would recommend checking into the spiritual impact of, skin. So try to identify potential cause, and then maybe you go through a list. Okay, what modality would help address the concern? Does it need medical intervention from a veterinary specialist or a natural vet doctor? Is it a chiropractor? Maybe they have something structural out. Maybe they need acupuncture or energy work or massage. Of course, we talked about diet changes. Maybe it needs some homeopathic remedies, supplements. So you can see that you can get quite detailed in this. I would recommend, if you're going to do something like this, medical and or pet dowsing, write down your list of everything that you want to review so that you're not just kind of randomly throwing things, but you're kind of going through a logical list of things and trying to sort out what's going on. And I always ask, right? Me personally, I would probably put my finger on diet. Is it with one hand, and with the other hand, if I was using a pendulum, is it diet? So what a great tool for pets, because not everybody can, read their pet. There are people that have amazing abilities to be able to connect in with the animals, but sometimes if we go through more comprehensive questioning, we're going to get better answers. Like anything, you can't ask a question like, am I going to be happy for the rest of my life? Well, what does that mean? Right? Am I going to be happy in this particular line of work? And even future telling stuff, I don't like doing that. I'm just saying as an example. Also, if you're dowsing, this just popped in my head, be careful asking things like, should I do X or Y? Because of free will, whether you should or shouldn't do something is kind of a little bit wishy-washy. It's like, maybe reframe the question. This is where conscious languaging really comes in. Reframe it to ask a very specific thing. Is this in my highest good at this time? Because it might be good for you a couple weeks from now, but is it right for me right now? So I think that's really clear too. In anything you're doing for dowsing, be really clear on your intention, articulate if you have to, write it down so that you get really clear on what you're asking, because it could say yes, but maybe your question was too vague. So it doesn't really know what it's saying yes to.
That is so true. There is a dowser that I watch on Instagram, and I can tell that you can always tell when the rods are kind of like, well, like this question could be yes or no, because if you ask a huge question like, does the government, well, there's many facets of the government. I mean, there's good people, there's mediocre people, and there's people who just don't have intentions that are well fit for the population. So you can't ask general questions like, does this organization or is this person, like, keep it simple. If you're going to ask something like, does this person have ill intentions towards me? Your dowsing rod can answer that, no problem. It'll probably be quick too. So it is also about languaging. You have to ask the proper questions. And if you use like wishy-washy words, like I can't even think of like some of the stuff that she's asked that I thought that wasn't well written or well thought out, especially like a lot of stuff that has to do with biblical or some of these religious things or spiritual stuff I've never heard of that she's got a hard time pronouncing. I'm like, hopefully she's saying it right. Because, like if you're reading a different, something from a different language could mean something else. So be mindful of the words that you use and what kind of answer you're trying to, like, is it because you're looking for the good of something? And you cannot use dowsing. I mean, you can use dowsing for the ill intention, but any higher self that is on the side of source is going to say, what the heck are you doing? Like, stop. This is not in love, this is with ego. So check yourself. I always make sure when I am dowsing what percentage my ego is at, because I don't want to have my ego interfering with, my heart energy. And that's what I do. I make sure it's from the heart, it's connected to source, and we go from there. And I did find the information from that medical doctor. So what he does is he does a body scan for dowsing. So it says that he asks his body if his body has a maximum functional. And so the answer from his dowsing was that he was at 40 years. Mind you, at the time of he started doing the study of the dowsing on his body, he was 65. And so he asked, like, what is the functional age of my body? He got 65. Then he asked the following, is there any health issues causing my body to function older than 40 years of age? And he got yes. Because you also asked, like, what does my body think its age is? So, and then he, tries to figure it out. What are the health issues? He probably uses a chart with all the health issues, and you can make your own charts. You can look up your own charts. There's a lot of wonderful stuff. If you ask your team before you start searching to look for what is needed, it's usually provided, at least it has for me. So good luck if you're going to do that. If not, you can make your own chart or just ask a lot of questions. So then whatever issues he has, he then clears them, and then he systematically checks all the functional age of his organs, his tissues, his body components. And when the results vary from, this makes more sense now that I'm reading this, his body wants to function at the age of 40, and some of his stuff was older, he would make sure it was all like 40 years of age. So when he was asking his body what the maximum functional age was, he got 40 years. That's his functional age that his body wants to be at. So his body wants to hold his records at that age for whatever reason, which is a great age. 40 is a wonderful age to have your body be in that tip top health. And then he just keeps redoing it. If it's not at 40 years, then he does it again. So he says it took him about 3 months to achieve it, where all his organs, his tissues, and his bodily functions were at the same age. And now he's 70 years old and his body still thinks it is the same age. And he's like, people tell me that I look younger than what I really am. So what an awesome tool that we can use to help us heal. And even Raymond has a story about how he was using a cane because his knee was bothering something horrible. So he's like, well, I don't know how to limit myself. So he's like, I'm just going to rebuild my knee. So I can't remember what time frame he used or was needed, but he started dowsing. He's like, talked to his team and said, let's start rebuilding my knee. And little by little, he stopped using his cane. He was able to do things that he couldn't do easily. And this is because he didn't know limit. He never let his mind, like a lot of us do, limit himself. He knew that energetically, we can do anything we want to put our mind to, and he went with it. So this is such a wonderful tool that I love to use, and it's so easy. If you are inspired, on his website, he's got 3 dowsing tools. I saw this copper one. It spoke to me. So my copper tool, I just love. A lot of people love crystals. Go out, buy one, or use a necklace if you're you're out someplace and you have questions, or if you're at a restaurant, you're like, I don't know if I should eat this. Something that has a heavy object on the bottom can be used as a dowsing tool.
And really, muscle testing, I think, is a form of dowsing, right? We talked about in past episodes, I've heard it called the sway test. If my body goes forward, it's yes. If it goes back, it's no. So a lot of times I'll do that with food, especially if I'm at home. I like to put one hand on my heart, and then I'll ask the question, is this right for me right now? And let my body tell me yes or no. If you're going out another way, if you're doing muscle testing, if you don't want to take a pendulum or something to a restaurant to ask about food, is you can make a circle with your thumb and index finger. And with your other hand, you can do the same, make a circle, or just use one finger and say, show me yes. It should hold strong, and show me no. Your opposite hand finger should be able to break that circle that you've made with your thumb and index finger. And so again, test it. My name is Michelle. My name is Dawn. It should say yes and then no. And that's also a great way to dowse, because really dowsing is just about using the energy to get an answer. One of the things I want to wrap up saying is, I cannot emphasize this enough. Make sure that you are grounded. You're doing proper clearing before you do this. Again, it's a tool. It's something that you want to make sure you're in the right mindset to do. And if for any reason you're getting kind of maybe wonky answers, or like that doesn't really make sense, hydrate. We haven't talked about that, but drinking water helps us maintain that energy conduit. So make sure that you're drinking water before, after, all day, but definitely hydrate if you are finding that your answers are kind of not making sense. And as both Dawn and I said about asking the right questions, make sure you ask questions that you're ready to hear the answer to. Because sometimes asking emotionally charged questions, your ego might jump in and take over and give the answer that, yeah, I thought it should be that. Well, if you're doing that, that's totally your ego. You're not getting any intuitive answers. Sometimes you have to be prepared for the answer. If you're asking, be prepared. The other thing I wanted to say is, don't ask the same question over and over again, because you are bound to get different answers, because either you're not respecting the answer, like they're thinking, I already gave you the answer, or you're not being disciplined in what you're asking. You're not coming from that heart-centered place. So like with any tools that we talk about, make sure you're cleared and have good intent when you're working with energy of any kind, with any tool, make sure you're coming from a heart-centered place, have conscious languaging, and have fun exploring. Follow, subscribe, and share Embrace the Spiritual podcast on all streaming services, including YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Go to embracethespiritual.com for bonus content. To book a quantum energy healing session with Dawn, visit her website, alchemy-sacredsound.com. And to book a quantum energy healing session or learn Reiki or Tuning Forks, visit Michelle on her website at energeticembrace.com.
Infinite love and gratitude. Thank you for joining us.